What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Happy Thanksgiving. Cheers to everybody. I've had one meal today, and it was probably enough to feed an offensive line. Haven't moved much since about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Hopefully, everyone had a very good day watching football. Not the greatest games by any means. We just saw the Green Bay Packers. I give the Dolphins a little credit. I guess they made the game a little closer than it definitely felt. The afternoon game had take a nap. Well, I guess it depends where you live. If you live on the East Coast, the game kicks off at 4. But for those of us that live closer to the Pacific Ocean, that was a nap game written all over it, especially in the second quarter through halftime. And then the morning game, obviously, we'll probably talk about Eberflus and the Bears right after this Green Bay game. There's also something else I saw. It's Fugazi Friday. And I thought the sweet potato pie was going to be a gigantic Fugazi. It turns out it might be the greatest pie I've ever had. And I saw something Roger Goodell said to the Sports Business Journal. Saw it on Instagram today when I was scrolling around, laying on the couch for about 17 hours. I told you this was coming. It was so obvious. You could see this coming from a mile away, especially coming into the new TV deal here in 4 or 5 years. It's a new package, but it's not even a new package. And this was inevitable. So we'll dive into that. And yeah, this will be our last podcast till Sunday with Colin, and then Sunday for me after the 49er Bill game, which could be a blowout. So buckle up if we have to see Kyle Allen again. But other than that, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. Every time on Sunday Night Football, when they show those houses right outside of Lambeau, just open their garage or like their back door in their living room where they're eating Thanksgiving and Lambeau's right there. Like, that is so cool. I mean, that is one stadium. I don't have many bucket lists, I would say, in pro sports. I've never been to Wrigley Field or Fenway. Those would definitely be two places. Hell, I've never really spent time in Chicago or Boston. Those would be places I want to go attend a game for sure. I would say the only NFL stadium I feel I've never been and have to go, and I would imagine most people feel this way. And if you ever get a chance, Lambeau Field. So any event you want to go to, any big time game you want to go to, any concert you want to go to, just download that GameTime app because listen, the easiest way to buy tickets, it gives you site views of wherever you're going, price points, flash deals. If you're going to a concert, it lets you know where the stage is. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account. Use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's funny. When it was 24-3 at halftime with the Green Bay Packers just working the Miami Dolphins, I thought, you know what? Let's go to the weather app on the iPhone. And obviously, all week we had heard, I guess all week, the last 3 days, about all the stats involving the Miami Dolphins, involving Tua Tagovailoa, and how they play in cold weather. Tua's record now is 0-8 in games under 40 degrees. Miami now has a putrid record over the last 15 games in cold weather games. They have looked terrible in most primetime games under Mike McDaniel. And when you factor in now recent cold weather games, going back the last 2 years in both Decembers and obviously in the 2 playoff games against the Bills and the Chiefs, it has not gone well. And today, when I started recording, it was 30-17. The number looks a little closer than the game was. And the weather today in Miami was 85 degrees, which has to be one of the nicest climates on Thanksgiving Day in all of America. Hell, where I live in Scottsdale, which is an incredible winter climate, it's like 72 degrees, 85 degrees. That's about as good as you get. And then they showed on during the broadcast when it started snowing, it was like 27 degrees in Green Bay, which I would imagine feels even colder when you factor in the wind and the snow coming down. So you have basically a 60-degree difference between Miami and Green Bay, Wisconsin. And listen, I'm someone who born and raised in a warm weather climate. I fucking hate the cold. I used to like skiing. Now I don't want to risk getting injured or anything. So I don't even, if I'm going to go to the mountains, I'm basically just drinking and hanging during the winter. Summer, do normal activities, but winter, like you won't find me in the slope on the slopes anymore, especially because these lift tickets at like Squaw Valley and North Star and places like Tahoe are like $700 for a day. But that's a whole nother story. But the reality is just these are human beings. And let's face it, Miami, I wouldn't say is built like the 85 Bears, right? From a physical toughness standpoint, the way they want to play, spread the ball out and sling it around. This is inevitable. What human being, what group of human beings could have a 60-degree difference from 85 degrees to 25 degrees playing a sport like football and have a snowball's chance in hell to compete? Like, it's not that complicated. This is one of those that's very black and white. Of course, they don't translate well to these cold weather games. It's basically impossible to. In what world? Mike McDaniel made a joke this week. I think on his press conference on Monday or Tuesday. They asked him what he was going to do to get ready. And, he's kind of a quirky. His press conferences are a little weird. He joked that he was going to have ice cubes in his pockets. And everyone laughed. Hee hee. What could he do? Honestly, what could he possibly do to prepare for that change in climate? There was one time, one of the most famous viral photos of the internet age with the San Francisco 49ers was when Chip Kelly was the coach of the Niners. And they had one of their worst seasons in franchise history. And I think statistically the worst defense ever. I forget who they played. It might have been Tampa. And they stayed, or it might have been Miami. And they stayed in Florida. And they were playing the Bears the following week. So they basically didn't come home. And the weather in Chicago was supposed to be bad. Turns out it was. It's like a snowstorm. And there was this clip of someone like spraying water on the kicker or a guy catching the ball. I mean, it was pretty embarrassing. And then they went and played the Bears, and I'm pretty sure Matt Barkley was the quarterback, and they lost by several touchdowns. And the visual did not do justice to the final score. Like, it's just hard when you have that. But, like, there's nothing you can do to prepare for that weather unless you travel immediately to that weather and play in it. And then let's face it, like, when you scout or when you work for a team and you coach and you're getting ready to pick players to come to your team, and we've talked about this before, defensive players kind of translate. Like, if you're a physical defender, whether you're a warm weather team, whether you're a cold weather team, I'm going to want you on my squad. But offensive guys, like, I got to do some digging, specifically with quarterbacks. And you watch Jordan Love and you go, I see why Gutekunst and LaFleur liked him a lot. You see, I mean, obviously he's turned into a really good player. And I mean, he's got a chance. I mean, he's going to go to the playoffs again for the Green Bay Packers starting quarterback. They're going to easily win double-digit games. He's just a very, very talented guy. But his arm strength really stands out because you could not be the Green Bay Packers quarterback with a weak arm. You have no fucking chance. None. Just like playing in New York, playing in New England, playing in Philadelphia, playing in colder weather spots. If you do not have a strong arm, it's hard to play in that, wind, cold. It's tough. It's why we talk about hand size. It always becomes a big part of the conversation. Sometimes it goes viral when people are making fun of these quarterbacks with small hands. And it matters because when it starts raining, it's hard to grip the ball. Well, if you play in Southern California or in a dome, like who cares? Right? Jared Goff does not have big hands. Well, historically, he's never played that well outside. Well, most of his career, right, beside road games, has been in Los Angeles and has been in a dome in Detroit. So you can kind of make up for it based on your own, ability to control the variables. So he's benefited from that. If you put him in New England or New York, or Cleveland, it'd be a lot harder. It's like you look back on them going for Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, you're like, you're getting a dude from the South who does not have a big arm. And this was before he sucked. Even when he was playing well, it's like, this is going to be tough. It's why Flacco had a lot of success. His ball pierces all the cold, the wind, the cold air. Like it translates. Well, where's he from? Delaware, PA, Penn State, Baltimore, Cleveland. Like that shit works. And you watch Jordan Love, obviously they've turned him in to a really good player. But to me, you could never draft a quarterback as like your franchise guy in Green Bay if they do not have a big arm. And it just happens that Favre, might have one of the biggest arms in NFL history. Rodgers isn't far behind, and Jordan Love clearly has one of the best arms in the league. So you just watch Miami, you go, like, yeah, I understand you're watching them play in this game. They're just kind of dinking and dunking because Tua's not going to be able to throw bombs. His arm does not going to work in that situation. And honestly, listen, I've gained a lot of respect for Tua ever since the last fencing moment. Like he's like I get him. Like and I understand why Saban liked him. I understand why Mike McDaniels likes him. I understand why it's just he's an easy guy to root for. And he's probably a better quarterback than people like me that are critical of him. But if you gamble, honestly, I was kind of pissed at myself. I should have put 5x what I ended up putting on this game. And this was the only game that I bet of the day. Partly because the morning games, you're going to be watching them anyway. I needed a little juice to watch this thing. It's been a long day. You've had a bunch of food. I wanted to be into it. But also I knew there's no chance Miami's going to win this game. Absolutely zero. When you factor in the franchise, when you factor in their quarterback, when you factor in their coach and what happened, they get their fucking ass kicked. It was 24-3 at halftime, and it didn't even feel that close. So you look at some of these final scores. It's like same thing with the second game with the Giants and the Cowboys. Like, what was the final score? 27-20? It was a one score. It was not a one score game. That was an ass kicking. But, the Packers, it's funny. They're a big trait driven organization. And I was thinking, I mentioned earlier, the sweet potato pie is one of the wildest experiences I've ever had. Because at this point in time, beside like some delicacies and things that you would have at some of these like restaurants that, these foo-foo restaurants that I'm probably never going to and don't really aspire to go to, like movie or shows like The Bear, like stuff like that. I'm not really into that type of food. But for the most part, I've probably dabbled in most foods, especially when it comes to desserts. Now, I'm not a huge pie guy to begin with, but I would say that I've had most pies. I've never had sweet potato pie, and it blew my mind. I was like, how do more people not discuss this pie like we do apple, like we do pumpkin? Like when you think about it, when you just talk about pies, apple pie and pumpkin pie, I would say are the most consistently discussed pies. I saw today on as most of you did as well when we were watching the Sunday night game, and they put up Matt LaFleur. His favorite food on Thanksgiving is ribeye. I like Matt LaFleur a lot. That is insanity. I mean, that truly is. You can eat a ribeye 354 or how many days are there? 365, 364 days a year. To choose ribeye, like, because I don't like turkey, it's like, come on, man. Then eat some ham. You're not eating a ribeye on Thanksgiving. I'll give you a prime rib, but like, come on. We need to have a conversation with Matt. But listen, you see that body type, like he ain't putting many bad things into his body. But you saw Calais Campbell say banana cream pie. And listen, banana cream pie is pretty good. I I once was invited over to Andy Reid's house on Thanksgiving, and I remember calling my parents. I'm like, well, I got to bring something. And they're like, well, go to one of the local bakeries. It's Philadelphia. And I went into a local bakery and I said, what's the best thing you have? Cake, pie, whatever. I like the banana cream pie. So I walked right in with that banana cream pie and it was fantastic. But when it comes to sweet potato pie, it was an eye opening experience. And I think it relates to NFL offenses because when I think we go, who's the best NFL offense? You go, the Detroit Lions, right? They got St. Brown, they got Laporta, they got multiple running backs, they got the offensive line, they got Ben Johnson. It's unstoppable offense. Say the same thing about the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, he's going to win 15 MVPs. Derrick Henry, going right to the Hall of Fame. Zay Flowers, next Tyreek Hill. They got multiple tight ends. Offense is unstoppable. And I'm watching the Packers and I go, I don't feel like we talk enough about this offense relative to the best offense in the league. They have, the quarterback can throw some picks, but when he's on, his talent and that arm strength through a snowstorm, whoop, throwing dots. They have Jaden Reed, which we definitely never talk about him when it comes to just high-level wide receivers. And I'm going, that guy could play for my team any day of the week. If Watson catches the ball, he literally runs by every defensive back in the NFL. I take Wicks. Every time I watch the Packers, that guy makes some plays. Tucker, the tight end, is fantastic. And Jacobs, like everyone, and rightfully so. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. It's like Josh Jacobs. I mean, this guy was a first-round pick from Alabama. And I was saying last year coming into the year, I thought he was a better player than Saquon. Now, Saquon is a much faster running back. So when you get into the open field, but in terms of hands and pass protection, Josh Jacobs is about as complete of a running back as you will find. Just a fantastic player. And oh, yeah, their head coach. What is he? Oh, he's the offensive play caller. Getting some holiday shopping done this weekend? Pick up some touchdowns. They're on sale at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. What else would you expect from the number one place to bet touchdowns? DraftKings has a doorbuster, profit boost, and bet one, get one promotions on all type of touchdown bets. Be sure to check the DraftKings Sportsbook app all weekend for flash deals that will have you dancing in the end zone. Grab some TDs with DraftKings Sportsbook. They're on sale from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code JOHN to opt in. That's code JOHN only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. And I was also thinking, when you think big picture in the NFC North, everyone loves Dan Campbell, and what he's done with the Lions is remarkable. It really is. I mean, it's like taking over a bankrupt business and turning them into fucking Apple or Google. I mean, be 11-1 with the Detroit Lions, who you just took to the NFC Championship game and were winning the game on the road. It's awesome. I'm a Dan Campbell fan. There's a pretty good chance he loses both coordinators. You would think this is the year Ben Johnson accepts a head coaching job. Said it the moment Dennis Allen got fired. Aaron Glenn to the Saints, it makes a ton of sense. Keep an eye, Aaron Glenn to the New Orleans Saints. So he's going to lose both of his coordinators. He's not the play caller. He's a Harbaugh. So who he hires as coordinators, and maybe he elevates some guys, maybe, but you never know. It might not be the same. And Kevin O'Connell is a lot like LaFleur. Stud offensive coordinator, guy everyone likes. Look at his quarterback situation. Sam Darnold is going to be a free agent. The teams are going to be desperate. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of money, and they'll probably be hesitant to pay him. I've talked with Colin about it. Like, I would not let him go, but that's not usually the way the business works in the NFL. They probably will. Why do you think they signed Daniel Jones? Because they probably want to make Daniel Jones be the next Sam Darnold just in case JJ can't roll. I mean, JJ tore his knee up, and then he needed another surgery like a couple weeks ago. So we got major big picture question marks with the quarterback position with the Minnesota Vikings. And obviously the Bears are just a shit show of an organization when it comes to coach. in front and just an operation. So really, if you're the Packers, you're not competing against the Bears. You're competing against the Vikings and the Lions, who now have one team has a quarterback question, big picture, and the other just going to have, coordinator position, big picture question marks. Well, you have neither. Your quarterback is under a long-term deal. He's an excellent player. Could have moments that drives you nuts, but it's like I can live with it if he's an explosive offensive player like he is. And you'd never have to worry about your offensive coordinator being poached because he's the head man. And even your defensive coordinator, like, look what happened. He hired Halfley from Boston College. And more than likely, like Halfley's going to be there for a couple of years. So if I'm a Packer fan, you got to be feeling pretty good about your chances. And looking forward, one thing with the Lions is watching that game, it felt like every 3 plays, there was a Lion laying on the ground or limping off the field. It was insane. I started feeling bad. I'm like, this is bullshit. If you're a Detroit Lion fan and you're 30, 40, 50 years old, you've waited your whole life for this moment. And your team is incredible. And it feels like over the last 3 or 4, it's one thing to lose Aiden Hutchinson, but the last couple of weeks, it's like we are losing multiple players every game. And I was like, well, no team needs this mini bye or just some extra days off more than the Lions. And maybe because I was like getting food ready and not maybe they talked about in the broadcast. I had it muted for most of it. Well, you're watching the Packer game, who they play next week. They play next Thursday. And the NFL is good at this. They usually take 2 of the teams that play today and they make them play next Thursday, which is kind of throwing them a bone. They get a real week, but you actually don't get the benefits of that mini bye. And the Packers, who are now, what are they, 8? They're 9-3, and you got the Lions 11-1. It's not like there's some 7-game gap between the 2 of them. So all of a sudden, if you're the Packers, you feel pretty good going to Detroit, where, let's face it, your team's kind of built like an indoor team. Your offense is humming, and you're getting a defense. Who knows how many guys are going to be healthy for them? So this is the crazy part about the Lions season, is it couldn't go any. They're fucking 11-1, the greatest start in the history of the franchise. And I would say for most franchises moving forward, like, you don't usually start 11-1. That is an incredible start. And they still got guys nipping on their heels. Like, by no means can they even take a deep breath. So it's Packers are in good position, man. This is a massive, what a great Thursday night game. One thing, though, that I did jot down, and it's just something that interests me, maybe it interests you. One thing the Packers historically have always done, and this is why they have Jordan Love, this is why they have Aaron Rodgers, this is why they took a guy like Christian Watson from North Dakota State. They love what people call in the scouting community and GMs and, college scouting directors, term they use is height, weight, speed. They love height, weight, speed guys. And height, weight, speed guys mean just like the opposite of Bryce Young or Tua. Big, strong, built guys that can move, right? And Luke Van Ness, who had a sack tonight, I remember hearing about him a couple years ago a lot because he was this rising prospect, this freak show from Iowa. He had never started a game at Iowa, which isn't that crazy. Iowa has a good defense. They get a lot of guys drafted. But I would say if you've never started a game in college, Luke Van Ness was drafted number 13 overall. And he's shown some signs. I'm watching him tonight, like, looks a little stiff to me. But I remember a lot of people liked him. A lot of people thought he was going to go really high in the draft, and he did. But he's never started a game now in a year and a half for the Green Bay Packers. And I think sometimes when you draft these height, weight, speed guys, the Packers love this because they historically had a lot of good coaches. So they can take these kind of raw products, Jordan Love, Luke Van Ness, Christian Watson, and kind of mold you into a high-end player. And it works a lot for them. But also it can't burn you. It's like, now I looked at the draft, a lot of guys that went after him. There wasn't some like Micah Parsons didn't go next. So it's not like they passed on some no-brainer. A lot of offensive skill guys also went after him. They're clearly loaded at those positions. So I'm not necessarily acting like they could have easily taken player X or player Y. But at Goot, listen, I would say these last 2 years have been a pretty incredible moment for just a lifetime scout, a guy that's worked at a organization since the late 90s. pretty big muscle flex. I was talking to a buddy in the league about this. He traded an all-time great quarterback, a lot like Pete Carroll and John Schneider did, that they did not want. Like, I don't want this player anymore. We don't plan on starting him anymore. He's done with us. And we actually don't really think he can play that well anymore. And they got a first and a second round pick for the guy. Obviously, the Seattle Seahawks got a lot more for Russell Wilson. Now, granted, he was a lot younger, but still, like, anytime you could get one first round pick, like when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, it's not like they didn't still want Tyreek Hill, or they wouldn't be the first to acknowledge, yeah, he's one of the best players in the league. We just have to pick and choose who we can pay, right? And this is going to be a bold move. We think he's awesome. We expect him to still be good, but we just can't pay him $25, $26, $27 million a year, whatever Miami ended up paying him, right? We're not acting like this guy is trending down. The Packers went, this guy, we're over this. We want out of this business. We want a divorce. You can have her. Except they got, and honestly, if he hadn't torn his Achilles, they would have got 2 first-round picks. So Goot has been incredible. But I would say that pick, he got a little bold. You know, and I talked to some other people that said, listen, on our draft boards, we liked him a lot too, and I get it. I would say this. In football, in basketball, remember what's his name for the Carolina Tar Heels? Was it not Rashad McCants? Marvin Williams back in like 2004, 2005. He didn't start on their national championship team and was drafted number 2 overall. Now, granted, I think all 5 starters got drafted. You know, team won the Natty. Basketball is not as crazy. He was a true freshman. In college football, if you can't start, I probably shouldn't take you in the first round. Even if you are talented and have a chance to be good, like that's pretty crazy. But ultimately, hat tip to Brian Gutekunst. But let's stay in the AFC North. Can I tell you about my new friends? No Days Wasted. The holiday season, means going to parties, hanging out with the boys, having a few cocktails, watching the game, picking it with some old friends. So be ready to celebrate and bounce back the next day with DHM Detox, the ultimate vitamin for when drinking. It's a science-backed, functional herbal supplement loaded with antioxidants and liver-supporting ingredients. You just take these 2 capsules right after a few drinks. And DHM Detox gets to work so you can wake up feeling fresh for kickoff. No Days Wasted is running the biggest sale of the year for Black Friday. Get 30% off all orders this week. Stock up now for the holiday season and your next game day celebration. The Detox supports your body's natural response to drinking by helping break down the toxins so you don't feel sluggish the next day. How awesome is that? Don't love it? No Days Wasted offers a full refund on your first order of a 15-pack. No questions asked. Don't waste time feeling sluggish after a night out. It's a completely risk-free purchase. Feel great or your money back on your first order. Head over to nodayswasted.com/3andout and use code 3andout. That's number 3, ANDOUT, to get 30% off your order. That's nodayswasted/3andout for 30% off and free shipping. I think we kind of talked about the Lions, like 11-1. I'm starting to get a little nervous for them, just how many guys are being injured. It's not even like guys getting carted off all the time. It felt like every other play today, someone would be holding their hand, someone would be holding their knee, someone would be limping off, someone would be shaking it. It's like, this is not a sustainable way. We are not close enough to the end of the season, and they are by no means a lock, despite having the greatest season in franchise history and feeling like the best team in the NFL to even be the number 1 seed. And if they're not the one, it's not even just the number 1 seed. They got Minnesota and Green Bay right on their ass. It'd be one thing if they had a several game lead, and even if they weren't the number 1 overall seed, they'd be the number 2 seed. Like, they're going to lock to win the division. Like, the margin isn't that big. And that's why Dan Campbell, why I defend him when people are like, why is he still playing starters? Like, this is the NFL. This isn't college football where you have 90 guys dressed. You don't even have 53 guys dressed, right? You dress 45, 46 guys. And a couple of them are kicker and your punter. So I don't even have 10 offensive linemen. I can't just yank my starters, or I have 10 DBs. Like, My DBs are my DBs. I got a couple guys that rotate, but those guys play special teams. So I kind of got to be careful. And they were kicking the Bears' ass. But it was 16-0 in halftime. Three field goals instead of touchdowns, and two of them came in the red zone. They kicked a field goal at the 12-yard line, and they kicked a field goal at the 18-yard line. But you're watching that game thinking, this is the Bears. Like, is this serious? Are you guys even going to try? But then through just the sheer volume of guys going down for the Bears, or excuse me, the Lions, Caleb kind of got hot. And Keenan Allen scored a couple touchdowns. And all of a sudden, you got a game. And you're like, this kind of feels like they're making it kind of a fake game. And then all of a sudden, the Bears, down 3 points, have the ball driving. And I look at Maria, and I just put a food away, and we were going to cook a couple of dishes to go with the food that we had got, and went, I think the Lions I think that Caleb's going to lead him on a touchdown drive right here. But I'm doing a couple things. I'm not like sitting on the couch taking notes, watching this part of the game, because I had already in my mind accepted that the game was over like 10, 20 minutes before that point. But then I'm watching and they're driving. I'm like, the Lions are going to lose this game. Then all of a sudden, Caleb Williams gets sacked. And I think he gets sacked at the 35, 36 second mark. And I'm kind of not really just, obviously, I knew they had a timeout because you could see the little dot. Do something, just thinking that, like, hey, they'll take a timeout. It was going to be a long field goal. Maybe they will try to get a chunk play and then rush the field goal unit on, which when you're the Bears is no lock to even work. But listen, if you get the field goal blocked again, we will just acknowledge your unit is the worst field goal unit we've ever seen, but you're still going to get a field goal off. And if anyone that's watched any of the post-game locker room from the Bears, multiple players were like, yeah, I just thought we were going to get a field goal. Not only did they not call a timeout, we all know the story by now, they get one play. Now, it was third down, so it wasn't like they had a chance. I've seen a lot. I saw Terry Bradshaw was like, I would have got 4 plays in 30. It was third down, and it was 3rd and 20. It was a long way to go. But to not call a timeout, and then for Eberflus after the game to say that we liked what we did. And I had a couple people text me like, what was Caleb doing? I will defend Caleb in this spot. Thursday, short week, season's been a disaster. Late in the game, you got to be exhausted. This is not a 6-year pro. This is not Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. This is not a guy with 40, 50, 60, 70 starts under his belt, 100 starts. This is a guy that has about 10 starts under his belt in the National Football League on the road on Thanksgiving, who's got to be huffing and puffing. And listen, he's a disaster in that situation. But I'm sorry, the head coach, who is not the play caller on offense, who, when, even though if he runs the defense, when the offense is on the field, he has to become the CEO. I control the game management, has to call a timeout there. Even after a couple seconds, he realizes I got to call a timeout because I get Caleb to the side. Like at that point in time, it's a 59-yard field goal. We got to be saying, listen, we're going to try to play here for like a 50-yard field goal. So can we get an 8 to 10-yard completion or gain and give our field goal unit a chance to get on the field? And we can tell them during that time, if I'm Eberflus, look at my special teams coordinator, Richard Hightower, and go, get them ready. Because we're going to call the play, and if the play works, they're going on the field. I guess if it's incomplete, maybe we would have to, if we don't feel our guy can kick a 59-yard field goal indoors, we'll have to throw a Hail Mary, but we would have essentially 2 plays called with the field goal unit. And he didn't call a timeout. And I had a couple people in the NFL. I was like, what the hell's Caleb doing? I'll defend Caleb there. The head coach has to bail him out. This is not a situation where it's a delay a game situation and a lot's going. Like this is, you call that you're standing there. I saw Matt Ryan say, I saw it when, I don't know if it went viral. It just got tweeted into my timeline that is 100% on the head coach. he can't panic in that situation. And Eberflus after the game is acting like he's in complete control, but he can't be because how would you not call a timeout immediately? And I think this is a moment that's very symbolic of the organization. I no longer blame Eberflus. After they got thoroughly embarrassed by the New England Patriots, who we have seen after are god awful, are absolutely terrible. On that Tuesday morning when they fired Shane Waldron, not firing Matt Eberflus is a major double middle finger to your fan base. Because ever since, you have found a way to lose 3 games in 3 devastatingly different ways. Yet they all are a reflection of the coach. And this is a coach who is completely over his head, who has no business being one of the 32 head coaches in the NFL. We knew this last year. And then you tried to have your cake and eat it too this year, but with the #1 pick. And you knew 3 or 4 weeks ago that he was a dead man walking, that it was over. And listen, like maybe Mike McCarthy's job, maybe he does come back. But you know what? Mike McCarthy, who, listen, I'm guilty. I thought he was done 3 or 4 weeks ago. Mike McCarthy's a real coach. He's a real fucking NFL coach. He's coached for 15 plus years at a high level winning since the late 2009-10 range when he won a Super Bowl all through the 2010s and 3 back-to-back-to-back years with the Cowboys where he won 12 games. And even this year, he'll probably end up winning 8 or 9. So yeah, if he gets fired, like, yeah, they wanted to move on. But if he comes back, like, yeah, we don't think we can do better with Mike McCarthy. For them to keep Eberflus is a pretty big indictment of what they've got going on. But the reality is when Eberflus is fired, whether it's Friday morning, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, whether it's Monday or whether it's after the season, Bears fans know they're just completely screwed. Because at the end of the day, their franchise and their ownership is a joke. And they make Kevin Warren essentially the grand poobah and the boss of this whole operation. And he's not even a football guy. So you have Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus answering to him currently, which I would imagine is not going to change. And he's going to have a major, major say in who the next head coach is. So I think looking back listen, maybe Caleb should have caused a stink of where he was going. And maybe all those people that said, and listen, I didn't buy into it. I thought they were just too talented. But it shows you that when you have inept people running an organization, when you have inept coaching, you can't ever overcome that, no matter how much talent you bring in. And today, like last week, like the previous week, I mean, they lost 6 straight games in every fashion imaginable. Blowouts, ass kickings, blocked field goals, screwed up in overtime, screw up a timeout, 2-minute situation. Eberflus, Poles, Kevin Warren, the McCaskies, they're all responsible. They really are. So we can't even blame anyone else moving forward beside kind of that unit. And it's kind of sad. It really is. Because look at how when the Lions changed, right? The Lions specifically turned the corner when they said, here are the keys to the car. The car sucks right now. It's a broken down piece of shit. But Dan and Brad Holmes, here are the keys. You do whatever you want with it. You don't have to, when you need to get an oil change or when you need to get gas or we need to change the tires, answer to this guy, and this guy. You guys figure it out. Whatever you need to do, you do it. And that's just not how the Bears operate with their football guys. So until that changes, until they move Kevin Warren out of anything that goes on with something not the stadium, I will short this franchise. Can I tell you about my friends at VIIA? It's the holiday season. Stresses are high. Sometimes you just need to relax. You don't want to go to the brick and mortar and shop. Well, I got you covered because I've been using these guys. This is my favorite. These VIIA Elevate. Sometimes I'll be on the couch on a Friday night, on a Saturday, watching a little football, hanging out. Pop one of these. It has 5 milligrams of THC. And the thing at VIIA is it's well renowned and ships all over the US, but it's known for this. You can control how much THC and how much CBD you want in your gummies. If you are a big THC guy, you can go up to 100 milligrams. If you don't like it, you can have 0 milligrams and have it be CBD only. It's made in the USA. It's award-winning service. I cannot recommend these guys enough. I take these things all the time and they make me feel fantastic. So this holiday season, gift yourself some pieces of mind. If you're 21 or over, check out the link to VIIA in our description. Use the code JOHN, that's my name, John, to receive 15% off. After your purchase, when they ask you where you heard about them, let them know that it was this podcast and that we sent you this holiday season. Enhance your everyday with VIIA. One of my, I would say, weakest takes coming into the season, and I just kicked myself because I was such a pussy. I did not like the Bears to make the playoffs when it was like the sexy pick. I said, listen, I expect them to be solid, but they got 7-8 wins written all over. I don't know how I didn't short them harder because I didn't believe in the organization. I did not believe in the coach. And I didn't believe in a rookie quarterback. It's very, very difficult to just come in, start to finish, and dominate. He's obviously had some moments, but for the most part, it's been all over the map. It's just hard to overcome dysfunction, and it's got him now time and time again because he has moments in these games where, like, God, Caleb's really slinging. And he showed me enough. Like, you see that arm strength. We talked about this in the Packer. The difference between Love and Tua is like when he lets it rip, like, hell yeah. And listen, I come from the Andy Reid school. Like I like elite talents. I like watching that guy throw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. But there's more to football than that. There's 35 seconds, even if you're huffing and puffing. And like that's definitely not acceptable third or fourth year. I'm giving him a little bit of a pass, but what a year for the Bears. And then the afternoon game. I like I thought the Cowboys kicked their ass. Their defense, this Overshown guy, the dude they drafted number 13 from Texas a couple years ago, that play he made where he tipped the ball, he was flying around hitting people. He's a fun player. Obviously having Micah back, who was all over Drew Lock, who, listen, you don't need to be Bill Polian or Brian Gutekunst to watch Drew Lock play and DeVito to play to be like, in what world did we put DeVito in over him? But at the end of the day, this entire offseason and on Hard Knocks, they kept hammering home, we are going to build an offensive line around Daniel Jones. And you watched last week, DeVito get the living crap kicked out of him. And Drew Lock today was getting hammered. You could have put Eli Manning. You could have put Brett Favre. You could have put Michael Vick back there, and they would have been a sitting duck. Maybe Michael could have ran around a little, but when you can't block a soul, you got no shot. None. It's like I didn't like the Cowboys. Like my favorite bet on the board coming into today was Green Bay, just based on the cold weather in Miami. But I just like Dallas at home with the New York Giants, given all the weirdness that's going on with the Giants. But then the moment like Wednesday happened and it was like, DeVito, he's too beat up. He just might not be able to play. I was like, could be weird. Drew Lock motivated. You got Brady, which I understood Brady shitting on Daniel Jones, the situation, because I don't know if he was told this, but like Daniel Jones wanted out, right? Daniel Jones asked them for his release. And in Tom's mind, that's pretty offensive because he has been in situations and he's seen it with other players where they just stick it out. But I remember reading 2 weeks ago, or I guess when was he cut? Earlier, 5-6 days ago. My days are kind of, I guess, middle of last week, right? Is Daniel Jones asked him, he's like, listen, he got benched, whatever. You're not going to be the backup. And Daniel's like, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. Can I play scout team quarterback? I'll play scout team safety. And the things Brady was saying today. Well, the Giants told him no, because part of the reason they benched him, they don't want him to get hurt. Well, if you get hurt in a game or you get hurt in a practice, the same thing. If you're playing scout team safety and you tear your ACL, they still be on the hook $23 or $24 million. So they basically just wanted Daniel Jones to sit on the sideline with his hands in his pockets because they want no risk of him getting injured. So Daniel Jones is like, you just want me to sit here on the sideline? So I do respect Daniel Jones going, yeah, listen, like, I'm not, I respect you guys giving me all this money. Clearly have not earned it. Everyone's talking shit about me on the internet, but I don't plan on just going to cold tub, the sauna, lifting some weights and sitting here, with my hands in my pockets watching practice for the next month and a half. Fuck that. Like, I do want to participate. So I think that kind of went viral today of Brady crushing him. I think Brady's a little misinformed how it all went down, according to Diana Rossini. She reported that, I think, last week, that he was like, well, I don't want to do nothing. And I think more and more people around the Giants were like, yeah, they just wanted him to stay on the side. So in Brady's mind, because Brady said, like, I would have played safety. Well, he tried, and they said no, which I understand from the Giants. So really the only way is kind of to cut him, is the only way to really keep him on ice with this much time left to go in the season. But they officially became the first team to get eliminated from the playoffs. And I just don't think we've ever seen anything quite like the hard knock situation, what has transpired with Saquon, and then their team, which is now 2-10. Were they 2-9 coming into it, 2-10? They're not going to win another. They are terrible. They cannot block a soul. Their defense is atrocious. Their playmakers on the secondary are awful. Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, like, yeah, those guys are good. But if the rest of your defense is just awful, you got no shot. And you're watching, you're going, I don't know, man. I get John Mara, who wants these guys to work, but you end up going 3-14 in year 3. That's tough. To get essentially blasted by the Cowboys on Thanksgiving when their backup quarterback's playing, and they just kind of embarrass you in what is typically the highest rated game of the day. That's the thing about today. Like, Eberflus with that moment, this is not Sunday morning. Like, you're not playing the Lions the morning slate of games, and there's 6 other games going on. So it's a big deal, but 3 other things happen that are also big, and we make fun of you, but he's like, hey, did you see that one catch that Justin Jefferson had and that crazy pass by Mahomes? Like, there are other things going on. Nothing is going on. Everyone's just watching that happen. So then the Cowboy-Giants game comes on, like, half the country's just sitting at home, eating or laying on the couch, watching you get clowned. And unlike basketball or baseball, if it was the equivalent on a holiday of teams that were, beside the Packers today, we didn't have a winning record. The Lions. Beside the Packers and the Lions, we had a bunch of teams that are well under 500. Giants are 2-9. The Cowboys, the Dolphins are under 500. The Bears are under 500. If it was the equivalent of these other, no one would watch, and it wouldn't even matter. But it's the NFL. And even if you suck, we're all zoned in. And I'm watching Eberflus have one of the worst late moment games you'll ever see, and then try to justify it after. You have Dayball standing there, looking good, by the way, as someone who needs to lose a little weight. And I had a good start to the week, Monday through Wednesday, but then Thanksgiving hits. That I admire whatever he's doing. Ozempic's kind of a little cheat code, but if it's true, just workouts and salads and stuff, hat tip to you. Just the team's fucking joke. An absolute, because the Cowboys were like the butt of everyone's joke up until a couple weeks ago, and they just kick your ass with Cooper Rush. Whichever other throw, like Cooper Rush would have a throw. You're like, played golf with a buddy yesterday, Bill Pecota, who played Major League Baseball for like a decade, played with like Bo Jackson, George Brett, and he's from big Kansas City Chiefs guy, and he was like, "What's up with this Cowboy quarterback?" He's like, "How could he be in the NFL?" I'm like, "Well, thing with backups is, like, ideally you can have a long career if you never really have to play, and if you do have to play a couple games and it goes well, you can extend your career. Like, this guy played in the NFL 12 years, and he has 6 career starts. But you get these guys, if they have like 15 career starts, their career is going to be shortened. So if it was like, it was like an economics class and we were doing a chart of like the supply demand chart, if the chart of years played and games started for backups, you want that game started. If you're a high character, people like good teammate, smart guy, knows the offense, can pick up things fast. You want your game started to be low, and then your years in the NFL go up. But the moment you start playing more, you get wiped out because, like, God, this guy sucks. So Cooper Rush is hanging on there by a thread. Like he had that little stretch a couple years ago when Dak got injured, was great because the team was good. He didn't have to do that much, so his win-loss record looked good. But then this year he's thrown back into the fire. Luckily, some of the defensive guys are back. But overall, the Cowboys looked at their schedule. That was the one thing, like we said about the Green Bay. Big game coming up against the Lions. Giants completely screwed. Miami, to me, Denver Broncos are one win away. If they win on Sunday, like your playoff hopes are over. And the Cowboys, kind of interesting. I can they get to 10-7? I don't know, but I don't think it's shocking if they were to get 9-8. The Eagles, they have to go to Philadelphia. I think we're all going to give them an L on that one, but you still play. Washington's got a lot of issues. I don't know. I just the Cowboys, and this is why, and I mentioned this the other day, why I think Jerry had said Mike could come back because he didn't want those guys to quit. Now he might not be lying, but he didn't want those guys to quit, and those guys didn't quit. Now, one thing really quick before we get out of here, it's been pretty obvious that the NFL wants to put a game every single week at 6:30 in the morning Pacific Standard Time in London or somewhere overseas. They aspire to do that. Roger Goodell told the Sports Business Journal this week that we plan in the next 5 years of having a 16 game overseas schedule. Next year, they plan on having 8 games overseas, 3 in London, 1 in Germany, 1 in Spain, 1 in Brazil, 1 in Mexico City, and potentially 1 in Ireland. Why are they doing this? Well, they have a Thursday night package that they sell for like $1 billion. They have a Monday night package in which they sell for a boatload of money. While this is on Sunday, a lot like Sunday night football, this can become its own package. Now, I don't want this. I'm not into this. I'm cool with just the 3 sets of games, the one in the morning, the one in the afternoon, and then Sunday night football. But it was pretty obvious, I would say this year, or definitely the last couple years, they were getting more aggressive with international play. And at one time, we're like, well, they're just going to put a team in London. Well, it's probably not going to happen, especially with the Jags doubling down on their practice facility and everything in Jacksonville. Where this was probably always headed, though, was to sell as a separate package. Like, hey, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whoever, we have 16 games for you to buy independently, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 16 a year. Here it is. Free revenue. These games were being played regardless. That exact game, the New England Patriots against the Indianapolis Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars against the New York Jets, you fucking name the stupid games, would have been a throw-in game on your third TV on a box in the corner that you're not really even paying attention to unless you're a fan of one of those two teams. They are now going to package, and by the time they sell this in 5 years, when you factor in inflation, for probably a couple $1 billion a year. And the other thing Roger mentioned is we're going to 18 games, which we all knew was coming anyway because they're going to have 2 preseason games. But these international games, I mean, look at all these packages now. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Thursday, Monday, Sunday, the international package in the morning. Like there are only so many ways. Like they're not going to expand the league. There's no cities that they're missing out on that they can go in. So you got to find ways to, develop new revenue streams. And the international package just happens to be $1 billion revenue stream. So we'll keep it positive here. Fugazi Friday. The only Fugazi was me not giving sweet potato pie more love. The moment I bit into it, and I love sweet potato fries, Not even sure if it's the exact same thing, but it had an excellent flavor. I was very impressed. So happy Thanksgiving. Grateful for everyone that listens and participates in the comments, DMs me, and talks to your friends about the podcast that you like and gets more people to listen. So thanks. Have a great weekend and cheers to from me and my family to yours. And we will see you guys Sunday.